6:15 on Goliath Radio. Gwen Azama-Edwards, retired city clerk, former city commissioner, City of Daytona Beach. The Truth with Gwen Azama-Edwards on Goliath Radio.
Stand. You've been sitting much too long. Welcome to Truth, a radio program designed with you in mind, a program whose sole purpose is to empower you, our listeners, for information leads to knowledge, and knowledge is power. And as always, I want to empower you to take control of your life, those things that impact you, your family, and your community. And what we're going to talk about tonight is something that will empower all three. You just need to get into it, start doing it. And I have two very special guests who are going to talk about this thing that we believe is just so key and so important for you and your family and your community. And it's called Kwanzaa. It's called Kwanzaa, and if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, they're going to let me know that too, because they are the in-house experts. Oh, you guys may not like to hear that, but yeah, you're the experts tonight, okay? As always, I encourage you to go to the website, and the Truth Radio Show website, and it's www.gwen-truth.com. You need to go there so you can access all those all-important links that will link you to all-important information and will increase your all-important knowledge, okay? And of course, this is the week before Christmas. Hey, we're not ashamed to say it. Christmas, Christmas. This is the time when Christ was born. And we should all be so excited and delighted about it. I tell you, to me, Christmas is the best time of the year. It's when people are on their best behavior. Well, some of them, a lot of them, most of them. I had a neighbor that got a little, but anyway, most people are on their best behavior. I've had so many guys just opening the door for me. That's almost a lost art anymore in terms of courtesies for women. And I'm a woman, and I have no problem, guys, with you opening the door for me and holding it until I go through. Thank you. It shows that you were raised well, and you're a great gentleman, and I appreciate that. And I know that the greatest majority of women appreciate it too. I know I've heard from some guys, including my sons, that sometimes women don't appreciate it, but I appreciate it. A lot of us do, so please keep opening those doors and holding those doors open. Go to the website, www.gwen-truth.com, so you can also access the query that I have going, and it's still up there, and it's about Obamacare, whether or not you believe that the Affordable Care Act, affectionately called Obamacare, will actually help those who are in need of affordable, quality health care. Let me know what you think. And again, I'm Gwen Azama-Edwards, former city commissioner, retired city clerk, City of Daytona Beach, author, minister, St. John Missionary Baptist Church Incorporated, and community volunteer. And these guys are also great volunteers, great children of God, great family people, and what we're going to talk about just really kind of ties all that together. But there are some disclaimers that they want to share with you so that you understand that there are some, there is some misinformation and some wrong information in terms of Kwanzaa, and we're going to share that with you too. But my guests again are Daisy Grimes and Hubert Grimes, and they're not here to talk about their occupations, but Daisy works with the president at Bethune-Cookman University, and Hubert Grimes, the Honorable Judge Grimes, is judge. And you were just fairly recently on my show, and you never even mentioned you were getting ready to retire.
Probably hadn't made the decision at that point.
Yes, okay. But we know that he's an author. He's written books, and Daisy is also a person who can stand on her own as well, because she is an individual who goes around and does a lot of presentations to help youth and to help individuals actually be better people. And I'm sure she can share more about that as well. But we're here tonight to talk about Kwanzaa because this is an event that occurs the day after Christmas, and it goes on for a certain period of time. I believe it's a week. But I told you, they're the experts, so I'm going to have them share with you what Kwanzaa is, how it came about, and to share with you what it is that's involved in those days that are incorporated in what is referred to as Kwanzaa. So whomever would like to start, and we're videotaping this so that it will go on YouTube, so that those of you who want to know more about Kwanzaa, who want to start this tradition, which Daisy and Hubert have been doing for many, many, many years as a part of their family, you can do that. So, all right.
Okay, I guess she's going to let me start now. But good afternoon, and we are so happy to be here this evening, Gwen. And it is an exciting time of the year.
Oh, it is.
I mean, I'm waiting to see what Hubert is going to get me for Christmas. But I'm also excited because in celebrating Kwanzaa, for 7 days he has to do something to surprise me. So I like that part too.
You hear that, Larry?
But one thing, the first thing we want to clarify is that Kwanzaa is not a religious holiday. It is not to replace Christmas. It is not to replace the birth of Christ. And so many people have gotten this misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
They think that it is a replacement. And it is not an African holiday. It is actually an African-American holiday. It was started in 1966 here in this country. And it's all about family. And if people would understand that it is a cultural celebration, as Hanukkah and all these others celebrations, that's what it is for us. And it brings about a time for family to get together, the community to get together, to talk about their purpose. I've been celebrating this with Hubert and I since we got together. And interesting, I guess he'll tell you that's really how we met. But we have been celebrating it together since we married, and that's been now over 19 years. Prior to that, I was celebrating it, and we're leaving. We're going to North Carolina, and we're now celebrating this holiday with our grandchildren.
Awesome. So it's a generational.
It is a generational
celebration
for us.
Well, certainly. First of all, thank you for inviting us to be here today.
And I share with them, I have been trying to get them on the show to talk about Kwanzaa for at least, I'm on the show for about 8 years, so at least 5 or 6 of those years. So I'm just excited about the discussion, but excited to get you guys here to talk about it.
Well, it's actually a very awesome holiday period and holiday season. And if you think about it, this time of the year, I heard you say earlier that this is such an awesome time. It's my favorite time of the year. You know, we started off with Thanksgiving, which is talking about giving gratitude and giving thanks for all the blessings that we've received. And then, of course, for me personally, it's my birthday season as well. But of course, then we move into Christmas. My son is born during this month. We have our wedding anniversary this month. But then, of course, at the conclusion of the month, so to speak, the last week of the month, starting on December 26th through January 1st, is Kwanzaa. And Daisy's right. One of the things that drew us together was I noticed her driving with this. She had a tag on the front of her car, and on the front of her car it said Kuumba. And being very Afrocentric myself, I said, "Who's Kuumba riding around with a Kuumba on the front?" And I knew, of course, the principle Kuumba stands for creativity, and of course that is the 6th day of Kwanzaa. And so that sort of led to the discussion, to the dialogue about Kwanzaa and about who she was, and et cetera, et cetera. And here we are 19, 20 years later, and we're talking about Kwanzaa, having been celebrating it as intricate part of our family life. And if I were to talk about it, because she said that, you know, it really is an African-American holiday, but it's a holiday that really is built upon African principles. But those same principles and values are really germane to every culture that we can think of. So though Malona Ron Karinga was the founder, and back in 1966, as part of the whole Black freedom movement, he came up with this concept of, why don't we have a week to celebrate those special values, family values that, You know, today we hear a lot about family values. Well, this was 1966 when he came up with being the fact that he was a black historian at the University of California, he was able to put together a series based upon basic African principles that seek to incorporate the best of our ancestors into a season when we could celebrate, honor families, honor values, and then pass those values down generationally to the kids who follow us. And I would dare say that if more of us were focusing upon those values now,
Absolutely.
some of the other issues that we encounter would be a lot less difficult. So December 26th, I want to jump into that and talk about the holiday itself, the seven principles.
Yes.
Well, the 7 principles are based on what we call the system of Ngozi Saba. And we always talk about that as, of course, the 7 principles. And the 7 principles include Umoja, which is December 26th, the first day after Christmas when it starts. And it actually is a week, it runs between the week of Christmas and New Year's, which is very befitting since we're all in a celebratory attitude.
Right.
And the first day of December 26th features principles of unity, or Umoja. And typically you would greet your family member or those who are participating in the Kwanzaa celebration with the inquiry in Swahili, which is Habari Gani.
And I would say, Mojo.
Yeah. And so Habari Gani basically just means what's going on.
What's going on?
What's happening. And the response back is whatever the principle is for that day. And again, the idea is to promote the idea of unity in the family, unity in the community, the nation, and in our race as a whole.
Let me share something here. When we talk about this first day, do you imagine a family, and in Fort Lauderdale, we have different organizations that celebrate these days, and my day was always the 5th day year. But when you come together as a community to celebrate these days, and the first day you're there with your children, other children in the community, and you're talking about maintaining unity in the family and in the community, you're actually sitting there talking about how do we come closer together? How do we prevent crime in our community? How do we help each other in our community? And you have children talking about, things as simple as not dropping paper on the ground, being respectful to each other, listening to what older people tell us to do. These are the type of things. Yeah, not fighting with your sisters.
Opening the door for a lady.
Right, opening the door.
Yes.
How do we treat our elders?
Yes.
And you can see now from, especially with me, with 40 or 40 years ago, my daughter now, that's embedded in her, that, this is just what you do. And our community, as Hubert had said, we would just be a better people. We would be better.
When you think about promoting unity, one of the things that we talk about is at each day of the week, family comes together and has we've sort of gotten away from the idea of families eating together, but this is an opportunity for the family to eat together and to discuss that principle, and to ask the kids, okay, how can you promote unity in the upcoming year? What are you going to do in order to make sure that we stay together as a family, that we stay together as a neighborhood or a community? For example, you oftentimes hear kids who are, let's say, teenagers and young, sometimes even young adults, who said that one of the things they always talk about, I'm not a snitch. Okay, but yet somebody might have just broken into your parents' home and stolen, their electronics. And yet you may know who it is, but you say, well, I'm not a snitch. But if you think about it, for example, is not being a snitch more important than promoting unity within your family or within your community? Because guess what? The person that breaks in that home today may be breaking yours tomorrow.
Right.
But when we stood together, as we always refer to, it takes a village to raise a child. We've heard that phrase or that particular value over the years. But part of that taking a village to raise a child goes back to the whole notion of, as a community, we work together to try to find answers and solutions to our problems. And it could very well be that, I mean, it's all about sharing. It's about caring. So as you can see, when you start talking about the idea, there are many different things that will spin off from that are basic principles that can last year-round.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think these are just principles that we should celebrate. I think that every American, everyone in this country,
Absolutely.
when they look at these principles, when you talk about self-determination, I mean, all of us want that. Each parent, each community person wants that. Collective work and responsibility. These are American values, period.
Mm-hmm.
Though we take it and celebrate it so we can improve who we are, they are values that every American wants for their family.
In fact, as Daisy was just elaborating, why don't we go through, and for those of you out there that may not be familiar, if you get a pen and pad, we'll give you each one of the values in the 7 values in the 7 days, and be able to help you to remember those. And of course, with the internet, there's so much information.
Oh,
inside
yes,
there.
yes.
So
I
if
don't
you
know
really
about
want to go
information
on-
myself.
So much.
Yeah.
But I think that he would first, not to interrupt you, but first thing that they need to know that we have to set our table. That's the exciting time for Kwanzaa, when your children and everyone is getting ready to set the table. You want to talk about
No, that's more your
No,
area. Setting the table.
no,
Daisy loves to decorate, and that's why another part of the whole principle in that season, because it is right up her alley when we say that she loves to decorate. And you think about there's so many symbols that's a part of it. We oftentimes refer to Kwanzaa as also called the first fruit of the harvest. And it's an interesting principle because the first fruit is also a spiritual principle, which takes place within even the Christian faith. And so you see here there's a direct tie. We start talking about the first fruit. The first fruit is the best. And the fruit that when we talk about in the natural setting, it is they bring together a straw mat, okay, which is laid down. That represents the foundation. And then upon that foundation, we usually will have a basket. And within the basket, we will represent different pieces of fruit. And the fruit, of course, itself is, again, a method of symbolizing the importance of crops, of harvest. And if you think back to the African culture, and historically, the fruit symbolized when you had a good harvest. That means you're going to have food for the next season.
Right.
And the idea is that we dedicate that first fruit. We dedicate that first fruit to God. We say thank you for the harvest. And as we say thank you for that harvest within the context of what's set out on the map, it helps to build, it replenishes us, it nourishes us, and it gives us that foundation that we need. So those are all part of the symbols. We also did put the Kanara out. Now the Kanara is a very interesting object. In fact, I was able to bring forth a Kanara that I actually built along with my grandson, Brandon, when we were, this was actually a year before last, we built this particular one. We actually built several. And the thing about it is that was a great project because I wanted to show him that this whole thing about Kwanzaa was more than just, it wasn't something that was a commercial thing that you had to go out and spend a lot of money on the store. And so, believe it or not, I said, okay, let me show you the creativity. I went in my shed and I got a 2x4, one piece of 2x4, and we sat down and we laid our plan out. We drew how we were going to do it, and then we began to cut it. And then we not only took that one piece of wood, which was probably 4 feet. I mean, this one here is easily 2 feet at the base, but we actually made a Kanara, and we created it such a way that it would have actually in layers, in steps, and then ultimately we put 7 holders, spaces, for the 7 candles.
I might need you to hold that up so that they can see it on the video
For
there.
those on the videos, it looks for some people it looks like a ship. But this was just an example
Yes.
of how we could create a Kanara. And it was a great project for the kids to get involved in because it shows them that sometimes you can just find stuff in your house that you can use. And so we got this piece of wood. We measured it out after having laid out our plan. We cut it. We then actually got these were like napkin holders that we got. You know, I don't think I let Daisy know I got her napkin over. We took the wooden napkin holder, very expensive, you buy them at a store, and we were able to glue the napkin holders in. Inside of that, we put a little plastic reinforcement to hold the candles. And so this whole Kinara, which if you go on the internet, when we talked about purchasing it, it was sold for like $75 on the internet.
Right.
But we were able to make this Kinara for probably $5. And it was a great time to work together with my grandson and to show him that you don't have to spend a lot of money, and you shouldn't spend a lot of money to celebrate Kwanzaa. You should use your creativity, your skills, to be able to do this. And so this Kinara represents something now. In fact, we made several. We made one for his house, one for our house. We stained it. I think the one we did for his, we painted it white. We used different symbols. We found we had a couple elephant napkin holders, and we reinforced that. We put the names at the bottom. So, I mean, there were so many different ways that you could be creative with this. But this was just one project out of the 7 days. And then, of course, we used this Kinara, and it certainly made him proud because he could tell his sister and the rest of the family, I made this. I made this.
And you know what's interesting was that Hubert told him, now we have to put candles in here. And one area he has this, and I don't know where they got that from, but then he had to chisel this,
Drill that.
to make sure that a candle could get down in it. So,
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of creativity.
just a little example. I mean, there are different ways you can make these, but not only just for the Kinara, but there are other things within it. And the key thing here is to get the opportunity for, in this case, grandfather and grandson to work together. So the time that we're working together, we're sawing the wood. It's a teaching moment.
Right.
And so often, because of the technology we have today, kids spend so much time watching TV and video games and playing on a cell phone and playing on a computer that they don't get the chance to have that kind of interactive time. And so this was what the idea of promoting family time together. And we came out of it, and I really believe that he learned some very powerful lessons that hopefully he'll remember for the rest of his life, and may in turn pass on to that next generation to follow. So when we think back about that was, we laid a foundation. And of course we have three black candles, 3 red candles.
You have 1 black candle.
I'm sorry, pardon me. The colors red, black, and green.
Right.
1 black candle, 3 green.
And I have a
red.
little picture here. I think they can see it where there are 3 red and 3 green, and then the black in the middle.
And you would
and each one goes in each day.
Right. And you put the vitamin in, and every night you light from one. You light from that one.
From that one and into the next.
Right, into the next. But I would like for Hubert, as he gives the Swahili name, I will give the name for those items that really go on the table before we start lighting them. You just talked about the prop, but share with them the Swahili name for it, because I think that's important that they understand that.
Well, maizo, which is also the crop, but it also is, we sometimes think about maize, which is corn, and that's one of the many symbols that's there. The mat, which I just talked about as far as the foundation, a straw mat, represents makika, and that's again, it represents the foundation of the family, and how we must continue to pass very important values of loving and caring and being and sharing from one generation to the next. Then, of course, I just mentioned the Kinara, which again is a candle holder, which is again we showed you just an example, not the only example, but it is an example that can be used to build your own. Or for those who want to just buy one, it's easy to go to the store and buy one. You know, order one off the internet. It takes a little more time. But we actually got to the point of being able to perfect this, and once you do the first one, it actually takes better. It's better and better. And then, of course, as you move forward from that, we look at again the 7 candles themselves, which are apart, and they go into the Kinara.
And how are you lighting them? You go up that way, or you?
It does not matter as long as the first black candle you put in.
Oh, the
then
black
you
one
go
is
from
first.
You put in green, you put that here.
So that's unity.
Right, that's unity. And then, I mean, you can switch up. Some people do from green to red, from green to red. It's really no way, because the children just go up. We have them to just keep in sequence with them. Now they do like this, the corn, because the corn represents every child in the family. So if you have a big family, a lot of children, you're gonna have 5, 6 cobs of corn on the table. But what it's supposed to, it represents their future.
Oh, okay.
So when they see that on the table and on the mat, they know that that's them. And
An ear of corn for each child.
right, and our grandson Eric is always wanted to count to make sure he was not left out, since he was a baby at that time. Want to make sure he was not left out of the corn.
You know, we talk about the cucumba, which is also known as the unity cup. And that's, again, going back to the idea of emoja. And some people, that may be a goblet, that may be like a wine glass, but it symbolizes the importance of how the foundation comes together. But that's the unity cup. And then, of course, the thing that most of the kids are so excited about, of course, is what we refer to as the zawidi, or the gifts.
Gifts.
Now, everybody loves to get gifts, but the idea behind gifts in the Kwanzaa planning is that not something that you go out and buy, but it's something that you must create, something that you must make. The gifts can be as simple as a card with a poem that you may have written, and or it could be a letter. It could be a commitment. It could be such as, over the next year, I'm going to work to clean my room. It could be that covenant.
Improve my grades.
Get my grades better. Behave in school. I'm going to be on time for everything that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to be able to strive to be a better person. I'm going to read certain books. I mean, it is as much of a commitment, and that itself is a gift. And then, of course, it could be, it might be a song. Remember, we got some people that write songs. I mean, here's an example. I actually saw a news story yesterday that was talking about how Mariah Carey earns over $1 million a year in residual income based upon a song that she wrote. Not the ones that she performs, which she gets paid for regular, but this is like what you call repeat money, residual money that she, because of work. So we got a lot of young people out there who can make great writers, who can write a song, and who knows, it may very well end up being something that finances their future. You never know. But again, that could be a gift that's created as part of Kwanzaa. And of course, there are many other gifts. But again, the idea is be creative. Somebody might sew a quilt.
A quilt, right.
And a quilt may have specific meaning because generationally, that quilt can be passed down. It may be sewing a pillow. It may be deciding that as a gift, I'm going to clean up the back porch, or I'm going to take the dog for a walk.
Or I'm going to do something for a neighbor.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something for my neighbor.
Or even share a recipe.
Right.
Yeah.
That you developed.
Now we've done and Hubert reminds me, I said he said you haven't been in Fort Lauderdale in 22 years. But when I was in Fort Lauderdale, we did a community quilt. And we had all of the families that were involved with this activity was to bring some fabric.
That was
important to them. And after the quilt was completed, we worked on it all during the summer. During Kwanzaa, we displayed it, and every family came up to tell the patches that they had put in there. And it became a family quilt.
And as a part of that, building on the quilt, the idea, the last item that we refer to as symbolism is, of course, the flag. And of course, many people will remember the red, black, and green. You know, the red, these were colors of liberation that actually was started under Marcus Garvey almost 100 years ago. And you think about that, adopting that principle in the red, black, and green flag. The black represents the people. And even with this, you'll see this poster here that I have that I've had for years and years. I think it's probably at least 30 years.
And it hangs in our house.
Yeah, every year. And the idea behind it, if you notice the colors black representing, again, the foundation or the people. The red, of course, represents the struggles that have been endured over years, or sometimes referred to as the blood that's been shed by our ancestors. And then, of course, the green represents the future of our children, the future of our people, which some people would say is in doubt, only because folks are doing more to harm themselves and harm each other. But if we began to start practicing those principles, these time-honored principles, these principles are not just for our generation. They've come down generationally, if you think about it, from our parents. And while they may not have knew the Swahili term, these were living examples of what they believed in and how we've been able to survive as a people in spite of ourselves and in spite of the conditions and circumstances to which we are confronted by. So those are some of the foundational, we call not just principles, but some of the foundational examples that we want to make sure
and the preparation for getting ready to go into Kwanzaa. And I think we'll continue this process. I will give the name that we will understand here, and you will give the Swahili name. And I think if you do that, people will understand that, hey, wait, we believe in that. You know,
absolutely.
We believe in, as you said, umoja, and if I said unity, no one would say anything against unity. And so you want to go to, do we go to the first day? You want to go to the second?
By now everyone has their pen and pad in hand.
Yes.
So the first principle as we've called out has been the African Swahili term is called umoja. Umoja, U-M-O-J-A. And again, that principle stands for?
Unity.
Right.
The second day, and as we again would encounter one another, we ask the word habarigani, and the response would be kujichagulia.
And I would say, that's what I would say.
Translation?
Self-determination. How many of us came up with our parents saying, you will do better, you will get that math, you will go to college, you will go to school, you will be something. We grew up with our parents and family members and teachers and church preachers and everybody in the community saying, you are going to be something. I'm determined that you are going to get out of this. I mean, we heard it all our lives.
Yeah, until it was ingrained in
It
us,
was
and then it became a part of
ingrained in
us,
us,
and
right.
our self-determination to do just that.
Yeah. And collectively, if you think about it, while individually it's self-determination, collectively you bring people together, it changes the whole attitude of our communities. The third day is called Ujima.
Collective work and responsibility. We've always done that. You know, I share with people so many times, and Gwen, I know you remember this. Years ago, we did not have a lot of money, but we would pool everything together. How many of our churches were paid for because people got together and worked? I remember my mother and her committee in the church selling dinners, and everybody in the community buying them and all of that.
Right.
Whatever you needed, we worked together. That's no different. Collective work and responsibility. We knew if we wanted something, we had to work together as a community. We had to work together as a family. Bethune-Cookman is here today because people in this community, when Mrs. Bethune came, they worked with her. I was doing some history, and they were saying when she built Faith Hall, it was a dime a brick. She built Faith. That was a community. No, that's what it was. Collective work.
You know, the fourth day is called Ujama, U-J-A-M-A-A, and it also means?
Cooperative economics, and we won't even get into this, Gwen, with you, because I know that's something that's been on your agenda. How do we improve the economic basis in our community? Again, if we cooperated with each other, if we supported each other, Mary McLeod Bethune would be full of businesses now.
Oh, yes. And I know there was a time when even the churches would get into it, and they'd have their own restaurant where all of the church members would go after church, and they supported that restaurant, which helped it to, you know, stay afloat. And one of them even had a service station, and another had a bank, you know, and they pooled their dollars, they pooled this, they pooled that, and that business was able to be successful because of them collectively supporting it.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay. Well, the fifth day is what we refer to as Nia, or
purpose. And we all know that we have a purpose. God didn't, we were not born just for nothing. There was a purpose for us being here. And if we do not fulfill that purpose, this world has lost something that God intended for us to do while we were here.
Right.
And we have to let our children, if children grew up today understanding that you do have a purpose, it's to be a great leader, it's to do the, maybe they wouldn't walk around with their pants hanging down and just doing anything. If from the cradle they understood that you have a purpose.
Right.
And you must fulfill that purpose.
And I say to people too that each one of us is uniquely made.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And each of us has a unique purpose. And it's not something that you can just pass off to somebody
That's
else.
right.
No, you were created for that purpose. And, you know, I know people don't like to get into the Christian spiritual side of it, but if you connect with God, He will help you to understand what that purpose is.
Oh, yes.
And people have been told too that even if you didn't do that totally, your purpose is always tied to something that you're good at and that you enjoy doing. Yes. You have been blessed with that purpose, and that's something that you need to work toward fulfilling. And sometimes there's preparation that goes into that. Maybe it requires a college degree. Maybe it just requires some vocational training. Maybe it just requires you being a passionate person.
Right.
Yeah.
But you do have a
passion
purpose.
to do it. Everybody has a purpose. And that's so key and important. We remember the individual who wrote the book, A Purpose-Driven Life.
Yes.
We all have a purpose.
Absolutely. And can you imagine the impact this has when you're sitting around the dinner table and you're asking kids, what do you think your purpose is? What were you put here for? What are you good at? Like you said, you start asking that. And it sets forth the thought process.
Yeah.
And while they may not know at age 8 or age 9 or what have you, I guarantee you by starting the conversation, it will plant the seed.
Right.
So they'll begin
That light
to
bulb goes off.
Right. I mean, you can imagine a young kid at 8 or 9 saying, well, I want to be a doctor. Right then you start saying, well, you know, to be a doctor, you have to get good grades, you've got to go to school. And it's an opportunity also for parents when you start having these conversations to be able to know how to guide that child.
Yes. Absolutely. I can say that my oldest, when he was, he didn't totally know what it was that he wanted to do, but when he was like 7 or 8, he always knew he was going to go to Florida State. No matter what happened. That's where I'm going. I'm going to Florida State University. And even if he was offered to that other, one that everybody knows about, he got really offers from that, scholarships and the like, but he said, oh no, I'm going to Florida State. We had to make it happen,
That's right. That's right.
Right. And when we get down to day 6, then we're talking about the, and it's interesting because that's December 31st. That's what we refer to as New Year's Eve. Well, it's also the day of Kuumba, or creativity. And that was a term that was on the front of Daisy's tag plate on her car when I first met her. And it's all talking about?
Okay, it's to find new, innovative ways to leave communities of African descent and others in more beautiful and beneficial ways in the community inherited. I love Kuma because it always said to me that whatever community I was in, I had to be about making that place a better place for the next generation. I had to do something. Gwen, you lived that life. You could wear that on, you could put that on your car. Ever since I've met you, that's what you have been about. Making this community a better place for the next generation, the people who are coming here after we are gone.
It's all about using the creative skills and talents and gifts that God has given us.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And if we think about it, our elders have always felt that that they should make it better for their children, the next generation.
Right.
Always leave it better than you found it.
Absolutely.
Right. Yes.
And our parents said that those who did not go to school, to go to college, would say, you're going to college, I was not able to go, but I'm working hard so you can do it.
That's right. So that your kids had a better life than you had.
Right.
That was always an overall general purpose for the family, for the parents in terms of preparing for their young people.
And the last day of the celebration is the one that I have come to love, and it's referred to as
Imani.
That's a name that we have grown attached to over the years.
Yes.
And of course, it translates to mean faith. Now, you know, the beauty of faith, of course, is if you go in the Christian tradition, you go into any tradition, any religious tradition spelled out, it is all talks about faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to always recognize the fact that as faith, we experience faith every day. And that faith is, I mean, we all believe when we sat down in these chairs, we have faith that these chairs will hold us up.
Hold us up.
You know, when we stick our keys in our car or whatever have you and turn the ignition, we believe it's going to crank up.
Right.
Well, the whole principle of Imani is to believe with all of our hearts in our parents, our teachers, our leaders, ourselves, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. And daily we're struggling on this planet. We're struggling. Sometimes we struggle against the wrong people. Sometimes we struggle against each other. But the struggle is really not against flesh and blood. The struggle sometimes is really struggle against ourselves. Beginning to do things that will help to make and transform and make all these other principles come to light, make them all work together. And the whole principle of faith, to me, is the benchmark that brings all of it together.
Oh, yes.
Because if you don't have faith, what do? You stay in your house all day, you hide out. You know, faith just gets you up and gets you moving, makes you believe it's going to be a better day. That today's going to be better than yesterday.
Yeah, it's like a foundation for hope.
It is.
And I hope our audience from hearing this will understand that this is not a holiday that is, even though it was created for African Americans, it's a holiday that every family can embrace. We have so many multicultural families now in this country. I think this would be just a great holiday for them to embrace and to share their differences and their likes. And we are only, as you have heard, Gwen, and the audience have heard, every one of these principles embraces making life better.
Yes, yes.
Bringing us together as a community. There's nothing in here about hate. There's nothing in them about not accepting others. It's all about acceptance and embracing. What makes a community any better than that?
And if you look at it, you're really talking about taking it to the next step. You're talking about transforming. You're talking about transforming the bad into the good, transforming what we have into something better. And you really look at this whole concept, it's really setting the stage for the next year. Because think about it, we're completing 1 year and moving into the next year. We light that last candle, and in fact, usually on the last day, that's when we have the big celebration.
Big celebration.
That's when we have the big, if you want to say, it ties into New Year's Day. You know, people do what on New Year's Day? Eat a lot of food. They gather together, but the families gather together. And they talk about those principles of that really will, what's your new year going to be like? You know, what are you going to do different in 2014 than what you didn't do in 2013? You know, 2013 is gone, the past is behind, but 2014 is ahead. And so all of this sort of, it ties back into getting your head ready for the new year. And you understand that if I can practice practicing these 7 principles during the course of the year, a year from now, it'll be better than where I am now.
Oh, yes.
And instilling that into the minds of our young people so that they do know that they got a purpose. They don't have to just sit around and lag around and do nothing but play video games or stand on a corner or feel like that life doesn't. You know, you hear so many youngsters unfortunately say things like, where are you going to be at in 5 years? And they tell you stupid stuff like, I'm going to be in jail or I'm going to probably be dead. Well, wait a minute, hold on. That's not what you have to be. Your ancestors didn't go through all of what they went through in order for you to say, look, I'm going down a dead-end street. You know, when you start beginning to embrace these principles, when you begin to embrace who you are spiritually, who you are ancestrally, who you are historically, who you are genetically, all these things work together to make you into a good person, into a better person than what you were before.
Yes, I know that I have tried to live this life. In fact, we have a corporation out called the NIA Empowerment Group, and I did it in honor of my nephew who was killed in Afghanistan. And we've been doing it in my hometown for 6 years. I've done it here in Daytona for 2 years. The first year we took 50 plus kids to camp for 1 week. and we paid for it. Last year we took 89 kids to camp from Daytona, and we paid for it. But and we're taking kids at risk to camp to show them something better. And we named the corporation MIA because I believe that that's one of my purposes is to try and do something to help young people see that life can be better.
Yes.
And I think that everyone in this community can do something to embrace one of these principles.
Absolutely, not only can, but should. As you, because you've been doing it more than the 19 or 20 years you say
Oh,
that,
yes,
that
because
you guys have been together, and you were saying too that many times organizations would take a different day in Fort Lauderdale or other places where you've gone. You guys have taught it and passed it on to the future generations as well, who've embraced it. And you've even mentioned, and it's so true, that there are some smaller communities and larger, like Fort Lauderdale, who've actually embraced this whole concept of Kwanzaa. And I'm trying to pronounce it the way you do now, Kwanzaa. And they understand the importance of it. The importance of it in terms of preparing not only the individual, in terms of, and I would just say in terms of us taking responsibility too, because it's about us taking responsibility for self, as well as responsibility as a family unit, as well as responsibility as a community unit. So it kind of emanates from within to the outer, outside of ourselves. And as you stated too, to help us to be better people, better people. And as a result of being better people, we can have a better family and a better community.
Yes.
You guys are now, you're going to, you say you'll be leaving Saturday to go be with different family members, and so for Christmas you will be then with family members, or will you be back for, what do you have planned for Kwanzaa this year?
I will be doing that with our grandchildren.
Okay.
And they are excited about it because we have a little 3-year-old now, and he is beginning to understand that the day after Christmas, his Nana and Papa, he's gonna be able to help us set up the table.
Oh, wonderful.
And he knows that he's gonna have a piece of corn for him, and his mom, Tiffany, is just sharing with him what it is. And our oldest granddaughter, Brittany, she's done it ever since she was a little girl. So right now it's not as exciting for her. Her younger brother is excited about it. And as they grow up, because it's grown up with them. And I told her, I said, well, you'll be just like your mom much later. You will then, when you're grown and you have your children, you will gain an appreciation for it. Right. Because both of my daughters are doing it now with their children. So.
And in terms of the communities that have embraced this, what do you guys see and feel that they get as a result of their involvement overall with Kwanzaa?
Well, certainly the importance of us preserving our culture, preserving the history of our ancestors, the struggle. There are many communities now that have embraced and built museums. For example, of course, Fort Lauderdale, but also right here in Volusia County, in DeLand, the African American Museum. In fact, when we the last couple of years, we've actually spent out of town during Kwanzaa period with family. But the last one we did, Daisy actually pulled together a series of activities, and it was all on a small family basis. And we did it with 2 other families, and in fact, if Camille and her husband are out there right now, we want to just tell them to do a shout out to them. But they've actually just opened a juice bar.
Yes, on Beach Street.
Yeah, and so what we did with them, with one of the nights, they went to the African American Heritage Museum over in DeLand and took the kids to visit there. Another day they visited the
Museum of Arts and Sciences.
Talking about those things that that will help to preserve that history. And I recall that on another night, Omar and Camille did a food teaching where he sat around and they taught our grandkids and their kids and we put diverse kinds of foods together, natural foods that were good for healing, good for the body. And so now, as a result of that, they've actually launched their business. Many people see them on City Island on Saturday mornings, but now they've actually got a juice bar down on Beach Street.
And our grandson, really, it changed his entire eating habits.
Yeah.
And we were able to take him out to the community farm that and the city has, and he learned about planting food and all of that. I mean, what could be better than that?
Oh, absolutely.
It kind of gives you a whole different perspective, and I think the idea behind this is to promote ideas that can last generationally. It's not an end all, or as some people might say, well, it sounds like to us that you're trying to tell us that this is the only way that you're going to solve community problems. No. This is just another way of doing so.
Another tool.
Yeah, to be able to use the tools that we have. And so when we think about people who are promoting the ideas of family, promoting the ideas of history, promoting the ideas of how can we be better people, all of those are just a part of it. And so within each family unit that's choose to celebrate Kwanzaa, it's up to you to come up with creative ideas. But if you go to the website, and there are multiple websites that talk about it, I steer away from those who want to criticize Kwanzaa. I steer away from those websites because there's always people out there that want to criticize whatever anybody else is doing. But notice that they may not be doing anything themselves, but they criticize those that are. So I will steer away from those kinds of websites. But instead, what kind of positive creative ideas that you could come up with in order to make this into a meaningful 7-day period. And I think that's the exciting part about it. The kids get a chance to get excited about it. And you can always indicate that on the last day, we open the gifts on the last day, and that generally, of course, keeps them on full.
That's awesome. And the other thing that I felt that was really key and important, the one time that I did do it with my boys when they were really young, it really emphasized the true meaning of a lot of the values that are so key and so important, as opposed to the commercialization of Christmas and and I gotta have this, gotta have that, oh, that's not big enough, that didn't cost enough, this, that, and the other. And it gets you back to those values and those things and key principles that are really important to us as individuals and us as people. And I think in many ways, if we think about it, it's those principles really that are kind of missing today.
They are.
That make us less courteous, less respectful of ourselves and of other people, and less willing to work with others for the benefit of everybody, as opposed to just being greedy and just thinking of self.
Absolutely.
And so much of it, if you think about it, really is tied to even a lot of the Christian principles. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Respecting others, respecting yourself, loving people. One of the greatest foundational things you can have in addition to faith, because the word says without faith it's impossible to please God.
Right.
So,
and I think every principle here, as you stated, we can turn it into something as Christians that we truly believe in.
Absolutely.
So it's not an anti-Christian celebration. It's not an anti-Christmas celebration. It has nothing to do with that. But I think after we have Christmas, what a better way to talk to your children and your family about living these principles, because that's why Jesus came.
Oh, yes.
And you said something about it helps to overcome the commercialization of Christmas. The economy, as many people talk about, is just sort of starting to get back in gear, the economy. But what about the individual economies? And a lot of parents right now are scuffling and hurting because they want to get their kids see what's on television being promoted to them. And as a consequence, if those parents are not in a position to buy those things, it makes oftentimes the parents think, well, you must be don't love me, or the kids take the idea that my parents don't love me.
They feel like a failure.
They feel like failures, and they internalize that. No, instead, maybe it's time to come up with some other options. Say, okay, Christmas may be beginning of this whole celebration, but each day of this week between Christmas and New Year's, we're going to do something that is unique to us, and it's going to bless our families. It's going to give you something that years from now, you can talk about it with your brothers and sisters about. Man, you remember when we were growing up, and maybe we didn't have a lot of stuff that we couldn't go out and get all those video games, or buy the new Jordans, or buy all this other stuff that people think are important, the new Xbox. But instead, you know what my mama did? You know what my daddy did?
Mhm.
Those are the kind of things that will, to me, be talked about forever. Kids don't, from one year to the next, they forget about what that electronic gadget was last
that
year.
breaks down
You know,
in less than a week.
And you move on to something else. But when you start talking about these things, these are creating memories, creating lasting memories that they can talk about forever.
In addition to that, I think one of the things that our young people suffer from is the fact that their parents are not giving them the attention.
Right.
And they really want that.
They do.
So that's something that you, rather than talking about, I had this great toy, I got this bike, got that, or whatever, you know what my family did? We actually sat down and talked. And they listened to me, and they asked me my ideas. It's not my unique thing anymore, you know? You did what? They actually listened to you? What? And they asked you what you thought about something? Oh my goodness. I mean.
And if you think about it, if you're involved with kids, involved in school system anyway, when you have kids who are raised on these values, and not to say to the exclusion of others, but the basic core values of caring and sharing about other people, the discipline, because it takes discipline to, if you want to say, to build this Kanara.
Yeah.
It takes discipline to sit down and say, well, you know what, maybe I don't need that, Mommy, because you really can't afford to get that. Or, Mommy, I know you're working hard. You know, in court, I used to ask kids sometimes, how much did it cost for that chain you're wearing around there? How much did your parents pay for that top that you're wearing, or those shoes you're wearing, or those jeans you're wearing? And most of them don't have a clue.
No.
But when I start telling them, figure it out, and you figure out how much money it costs your parents to invest their hard-earned work. Many of these parents are doing at minimum wage. You begin to, the
2 or 3 jobs.
Yeah, the ideas put in their head. So you can't just go out there and buy a $150 pair of Jordans just because everybody else is getting them. But how do you deal with that? You have to combat commercialism by restoring what are your family values. You know, one of the things that we also did, Daisy, it was to look at developing a family lineage. That was another project we engaged in, where we actually looked at, and she was good on that Ancestry.com, much better than me. But
I'm gonna have to call you on it. I just started.
We were able
I go
to
back
go
to
back,
slavery.
and she actually helped me to go back
Yeah.
as far as 1830 with my family on my mom's side. And we started thinking about it and having discussions with the kids about, do you know where you came from? You know the lineage you came from. And you start looking at those things, those generational values. What did they go, how did they survive slavery? How did they survive after slavery? How did they make it through, you know, the wars, the World War I's, the World War II's? Did any of your family members fight during those times, fight in the wars? Were they in the military? You know, how did they make it through the turbulent 60s? You know, and kids today don't have a clue. And they think that with, you know, the things about Dr. King that we experienced as young people growing up, they look at that stuff and say, well, that's so remote in time to them that they don't think, well, that was then and this is now. But those are the same time-tested values that are going to get us through into the next 50 years.
Right.
Those same tested values. These are the things that we must talk about.
And I think one thing that has been important for me is that when we have been teaching our children these values, and now our grandchildren, you really gain an appreciation for everybody. And I know during different times, especially with Tammy and Tiffany, when we had to discuss a race issue, it was a great opportunity for me to be able to share with them all of the great people who fought for civil rights, and to share with them that no, that's a misunderstanding. There were not just black people. The first person to get killed in the civil rights movement was a white woman. And so it teaches, you know, it started teaching my children that you have to love everybody.
Oh yeah.
You just can't look at people by color. But it was all because when we were going through Kwanzaa, we could sit down and talk about these issues. They could express them, and they began to understand, well, it's not just about me, it's about this community. It's about me loving everybody. It's about me living a life that's pleasing to everyone. And we don't have those kind of conversations now.
And we're all connected in some form
We
or
are
fashion.
all connected.
Go all the way back.
Yeah,
we're
all
all
connected.
You know, so
My husband, in my research, we found out that, and he laughs at me, that my great uncle was General Longstreet, who was a Confederate general.
Mm.
And we've been able to document it. But you know, the thing is, that is a part of who we are.
Right.
That is a great part about this country.
Yes, and you know, we can try to condemn people and judge about what they did at a particular given time, but the truth is that we don't know what it was that they went through at that
Right.
time that caused them to make this decision or to follow that particular path. And it takes research and really trying to find out what was going on to try to understand that. But all of us we're connected in some form or fashion. We all have, you know, you think about Clarence Thomas said we all have skeletons that are in our closets in some form or fashion. We go back far enough, you know, and we all need to be more accepting of each other.
And that's what these 7 days that if our communities would embrace this, we would really learn to be that way. Because then it's not I, it's about community.
And another way of embracing it is also not just to have it with, you know, whether we talk about a big community celebration or whether we're talking about a unique one family celebration. The great idea is, like, for example, when we did it with most recently with Omar and Camille, is that we had several families, you know, and that gives you the benefit of being able to build off of each other,
Right.
and each other's strengths, and then sit around with the kids and explain to them, hey, look, these are some of the stories. And you know, not only do we have the bigger historical things such as people like the Frederick Douglasses or Malcolm X or the Dr. Kings and the like, but then you talk about, what about your grandmama or your granddad or your great grandmama? You know, did you have somebody who's done what in your family? And that takes a lot of the focus off of the negative stuff. And everybody got something negative. I used to always say that if our families were like the NFL team, that we all have people that we wish we could trade with somebody else's family, okay, and get a draft pick in exchange. But nevertheless,
you can choose your friends, but not your
your
family.
family. But this is an opportunity for us to talk about what's the best, what's good in our family, and how can we help build upon those things and build these kids, get these kids ready for the next generation and the challenges that they're going to be confronted with.
Well, absolutely, and I think we all need to realize, and our children need to realize, there are good people and bad people in all of our families.
In
We
all
go
of
back
our
far
families.
enough, you know.
That is so true.
Rather than pointing fingers, making judgments or whatever, try to understand, you know, and appreciate. If we could appreciate not only our immediate family, but appreciate one another in total. In total, the world would be a better place.
Would be a better place.
Yes.
You know, I want to, Daisy was talking about Tiffany Samuel earlier, and you know, one of the things that I didn't mention was, but that my daughter's middle name, Eben, is Eben Iman, but Iman, of course, is taken from Imani, which means faith. And then we also have other parallels because we chose to select certain principles to help define us as part of our ongoing life. I mean, you'll see the word Imani around our
I
house.
know you
Well, that
have
was my
a
company,
business.
Mr.
Yes.
Company built on faith. You know, when you think about it, there are ways that you can use these principles to help you to remind yourself of what your purpose is every day. You know, you see the word Nia. What would that do? That would remind me, man, I know I'm not, maybe I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up, but I know one of my purposes is that I can't act stupid in school. You know, I got to make sure I get my work.
Yes,
you know, that I'm my best behavior. So it's reinforcing those positive values. And again, sometimes we see people just pick names and pluck names out and attach names to kids that may have no meaning whatsoever. And if you ask them, what's the meaning of that name? I don't know.
Or even how to spell it.
Oh my God. And my job on the bench, I can't tell you how many times I've run into problems trying to pronounce names. And I would honestly just get to the point and say, please tell me how to pronounce your name. Because and then you ask them, well, what does it mean? And they don't have an attached significance to it. But again, going back to the value system, then as we selected her name, Eben meant gift, and then of course Iman, taken from Imani, means faith, gift of faith. So that's an example.
And the name is so important, you know.
It
Biblically, I mean, it really it really told your story, and it set you in terms of your purpose for life.
For your purpose for life.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
how names were given during biblical days.
Uh-huh.
You just didn't come up with something and say, oh, I want
Yeah,
that
just
name.
because
It
it
had a
sounds
meaning.
good,
Yeah.
right, yeah. And then they end up, you know, they give them the big names they can't spell, can't pronounce, and then they end up calling them Nisi or
Right.
Rhea or RJ or whatever, you know.
or little man,
Yeah,
or
right, yeah.
something or some other nickname.
My grandchildren were born. It's my daughter. She was talking about name. I said, give them a resume name. And she said, what do you mean? I said, give them a resume name. Give them a name that people will be able to pronounce all their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And when they go for an interview, people will be able to pronounce their name.
That's right, that's right. They say, hey, that's somebody I want to talk to.
That's the one I want
Yes,
to talk to.
absolutely. Well, could you just run down very quickly the 7 days again? And I know we know it starts December 26th. It ends on January the 1st. And just give them all the Swahili. Is that right?
Yes.
And okay.
Yes.
Oh God, I'm so
All
proud
right.
of myself.
Of course. Well, all right. I'll just call off the Swahili name, and Daisy will respond with
Okay.
the definition of the principle. The first day, December 26th, is Umoja.
Unity,
Day 2, Kuji Chagulia.
self-determination,
The third day, Ujima.
collective work and responsibility,
The fourth day, Ujama.
cooperative economics,
The fifth day, Nia.
purpose,
The sixth day, Kuumba.
creativity,
And the last day, or the seventh day, which also ties into completion,
Yes, yes.
the seventh day, Imani.
faith.
And we have to mention too that January 1st, African Americans used to celebrate that name. 'Cause
That's
that's when
right.
we found out we were
That's
free. We were
that's
no
right.
longer slaves.
That's
Even though it
right.
happened once before, that was the day we found it out.
That's
and
right.
so I know
Emancipation.
churches used to celebrate that the day of emancipation,
Mhm.
but now it's like any other day. And it's important to celebrate days that have an impact on your life, because what does the word say? If you don't teach them while they're young, teach them and let them learn their history, they're bound to forget it.
Yes.
And there's a lot that you've lost then that could have enriched them throughout their lives. Well, this has been just super, super great. I appreciate you guys so much coming on and sharing with our listeners about Kwanzaa and the principles, the 7 principles for the 7 days. It runs again, guys, from December 26th through January the 1st. And it's something that is important, and that all cultures, because it is about cultural development, about principles, about values that are good for the individual, for the family, and the community, that all cultures can take part in and gain something from it. So we hope that you will all not only give a listen, but also utilize, even if you only did 1 or 2 days or whatever, or you got with other families that could do the same thing. We would encourage you to do so, and I'm just so grateful to Daisy and Hubert Grimes for coming on and sharing this. And if someone had questions, how can they contact you? And because I know you guys go and you share with others. You
Yes.
try to encourage other groups and organizations and individuals and families, of course, to take part in this, because it's been a part of your life for so long.
Yes,
and
it has.
we know that it has a benefit. It has benefited you and your family, and it can benefit so many other people in the community as well. How best to
Well, they can
Connect.
call me 386-846-6239. 846-6239.
Or they can reach me by email at Hugh Grimes, H-U-G-H, Grimes @gmail.com is the best way to get in contact with me. And of course, we also, as with other things, we have a website, HubertGrimes.com, which talks a little bit about the book that I wrote, which is entitled How to Keep Your Child from Going to Jail. And I'm looking forward to the first of the year, because I'm working on another book that I hope to be publishing in March, that will be talking about devotional keys, the keys to my success. It's another book that, again, is targeted along the same value system, talking about how do we do those things that will help us to become better people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have a guest who will be coming on to talk about something else you're getting into too. But that's for the future, for our guest that I have next month. Well, I tell you guys, you talk about people being involved in the community and doing so much to help others, and that is just your life. That's both of your lives. Yours, Daisy, yours, Hubert.
That's Ania.
Yes, right. And I want to say for myself and speaking for so many others too, that we truly appreciate the commitment, the dedication that you all have demonstrated over the years in terms of your doing things for people. And you're the prime role models for family. You really are. So just keep it up. Keep it up, okay?
In fact, I'm leaving here now to go and give a report at the Martin Luther King Day committee.
Yes, and do encourage them to go to the banquets coming up,
yes,
right?
Yes,
yes. And tickets will be available.
Tickets are available
Okay.
at $60, and they can go to Reverend Dr. Durham's church and get a ticket.
Okay, wonderful. And when is the event?
January the 16th at the Hilton.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so this is another opportunity, guys, to get out there in the community and to help. And again, we want to thank all of you, all of our listeners for listening in. And we want to also share that Halifax Health is having December 17th, they're having an informational community forum on the health insurance marketplace. So be sure to go take part in that. It's from 10 to 1. And again, it is at Halifax Hospital. That's December 21st. And please, please, please go so you can find out more information about Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. And get signed up, because you have to get signed up. I believe it's by December 27th if you want it to start January 1st. So please, please, please do that. Again, thank you to all of our listeners. We join together in saying happy holidays to everyone. That's happy holidays in terms of a Merry Christmas. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we won't have a show next week because we'll all be celebrating, okay, the Christmas holidays. It is a great time. It's a time of really coming together, of sharing, of understanding the true meaning for the season, which is the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, understanding that He came that we might have life, have the opportunity for eternal life, and to understand too that God loved family. That's why